Welcome back to the lecture series on pattern recognition. In the previous lecture, we have seen what clustering is, what are various applications of clustering. Then we have also discussed various proximity measures. That is, how do we identify whether two given objects are similar or dissimilar, or how to identify the proximity measure between two different given objects, and what is the kind of distance measure or the similarity measure that can be used depending on the type of given data. So for the type of numerical data, so how do we identify the proximity measure? Similarly, for the non-numerical data like categorical data or the binary data, nominal data, how to identify the proximity measure we have seen in the previous lecture. And in today's class, we'll continue the discussion on clustering itself, but we'll see what are various different types of clusterings that are possible, and based on what these clustering types are introduced, and we'll briefly discuss about one of the famous clustering algorithm, that is K-means algorithm. So let me start the discussion with introducing various challenges in the clustering. So while applying clustering, what are the various challenging? So because what is the criteria function we need to apply or we need to use in the clustering algorithm, that we need to decide. So depending on the cost function, the clusters you are forming will be changing. That is why we need to decide on the cost function or the criteria function that is to be used, and what is the type of similarity measure I need to apply. So one way is we can, depending on the type of data, we can select the similarity or the distance measure, but even then we have different options. Say for example, in the case of the numerical data, we have L1 measure, L2 measure, L3 measure, or LP norm also you can use. And among the different possible measure, what is the type of measure you need to apply, that we need to decide, and what is the underlying structure that is to be assumed. So whether we need to use and one more challenge is how many number of clusters that can be formed. So given the data, whether there are 2 clusters or 10 clusters, we don't have any idea on seeing the data. That will not be provided to the algorithm or to the user. So that's how to get an idea on the number of clusters. So these are all the various challenges in applying the clustering on the given data. And different answers, so answering these questions in a different way, so leads us to different types of formation of different types of clustering algorithms. And in today's class, we'll be discussing various types of clustering algorithms. And the common objective is whichever algorithm is generalizing well, so that is the algorithm finally we'll be selecting. And let's see what are the different types of, so in general, so this is kind of generally what are the types of clustering algorithms that can be useful. So one set of algorithms are partition based algorithms. Then we have another set of algorithms known as hierarchical algorithms, and another is based on the density. Then there are another set of algorithms known as grid based algorithms. Even graph based algorithms are also possible. Then there is another set of algorithms known as model based algorithms. So these are the different possible sets of algorithms that can be used for, that are popular for the clustering task. Now let's see in detail each of these. The partitioning, coming to the partitioning clustering algorithms, so how these algorithms work is, or how they are categorized is, depending on what these are called as partitioning algorithm is. So given the data, you are going to divide this data into K groups, and the user has to provide the K value, which is an unknown value which the user does not have any idea. So here the K value is predefined. If your K value is given as 5, then your partitioning algorithm, when you apply the clustering algorithm, then your algorithm will be generating 5 different clusters on the given data. If your K value is 15, then your algorithm will be generating 15 different clusters. That is how the partitioning algorithms work. And it divides the data into clusters by satisfying these 2 requirements. The first requirement is each group should consist of at least one data sample, and every object that is given to you must be belonging to exactly one of the cluster. So you cannot assign one object to more than one cluster. So these partitioning algorithms must satisfy both these criteria, and the most famous algorithm under this partitioning set is the K-means algorithm, and which has proven to be still till, even if it is introduced somewhere around 1970s, so till the date it has been used in many of the real-time applications, and it has been showing very effective results. So now let's see the second set of algorithms known as hierarchical algorithms, hierarchical clustering algorithms. And the hierarchy, based on the hierarchy, the clusters are formed either in the bottom-up fashion or the top-down approach. These clusters can be formed given the entire data. Maybe you can partition it into first 2, then into 4, then into 6, so on and so forth. And finally, whatever you are getting or wherever you are stopping, you can call this as one cluster, other cluster, so on and so forth. Or otherwise, in the other way, the bottom-up approach, you can, how you can consider is, you can consider each of the data sample as one cluster, and maybe you can slowly join them together till you get the enough number of clusters. Maybe I feel that these two are more similar, I join them together, and I feel that these two are more similar, these three are more similar, maybe I join them together. So that is how the next level of groupings will be formed, and I continue this process till I get my criteria function is satisfied. So that is how the hierarchical clustering algorithms are used or work. And we have two different approaches in this hierarchical clustering algorithms, the agglomerative approaches and the divisive approaches, and in the later classes, in the later lectures, we will be discussing the details of these two types of approaches. And there is another type of approach known as the density based clustering approach. In this density based approach, so rather than having the clusters on the sparse spaces, so we believe that the dense data, wherever the data is dense in that space, it is assumed to be having one type of cluster. Say for example, if your data is something like this, then we can maybe form two clusters like this. So wherever the data is more dense, so there is a possibility of getting a cluster in that region rather than having the cluster in case of the sparse region. So based on the density of the data, we divide the data into clusters. So such set of algorithms are called as density based algorithms. And these set of density based algorithms are very, very crucial in designing the clusters which form the non-linear shape. Say for example, your cluster is have to be this shape or maybe of this shape. So in such type of non-linear shape, whenever your clusters have to form non-linear shapes, say for example, your data is something like this. See here, though these two samples are looking closer than these two samples, these two samples are together than these two samples, even then these two samples will be forming into a single cluster than these two samples. So that kind of non-linear shapes can be formed with the help of this density based clustering. So that this region is more dense when compared to this region. That is how this is formed as a cluster and this is formed as another cluster. And this density based clustering algorithms results in the non-linear shapes. And DBSCAN is one of the popular density based algorithm, and we'll be discussing in the future coming lectures. And it makes use of two different concepts, that is data reachability and the data connectivity. So whether the data is reachable or not, whether the data is connective or not. See here, so you can observe that this sample is more reachable and this connected, right? So rather than there are no objects in between. Though these two samples are close, there is no objects in between, or the data is not connective or reachable. That is how these kind of density, depending on the density of the data, these type of clusters can be formed. And now let's see another type of data, another type of clustering, the model based clustering. So example is the popular Gaussian mixture models, which can be used to form the different clusters. And here the assumption is the data is following some kind of probability distribution, and based on the probability distribution, based on that assumption, we'll be forming the clusters. And we'll be identifying the density measures, the density measure given the set of data, and once the density is measured, we can form the clusters. And another set of methods are the fuzzy clustering based algorithms. In case of the fuzzy clustering algorithms, in case of the other algorithms, mostly how the clustering happens is we assume that one object is having association. Say for example, this is one cluster and this is the other cluster. And if you consider this object, either you can assign this object to this cluster or this cluster. And if this example is given, then this example can be either assigned to this cluster or to this cluster. You cannot assign the same sample to multiple objects. So with that assumption only, generally the non-fuzzy clustering algorithms work. But in case of the fuzzy clustering, what happens is, so you can assign an object to more than one cluster. So that is also known as the soft clustering. So here you can see such clustering algorithms are known as the soft clustering based algorithms. I can give you one example. So maybe a person, so for example, I am a teacher, my profession is a teacher, and I am also pursuing PhD, so I can be treated as a student also. In that case, I can be assigned to the student group and also the faculty group. So with the faculty group I can be given some association, to the student group also I can be given some association. So in that way you can assign a particular sample to two different clusters at the same time, or more than one cluster at the same time. So such kind of the algorithms which work based on this assumption, they are known as the fuzzy clustering algorithms. And we will be discussing one of the fuzzy clustering algorithm known as the fuzzy C-means algorithm. And now, so this gives the big picture of different types of clustering algorithms. You can see there are various types of clustering algorithms: the partitioning methods, hierarchical, density, graph based, and the model based. In addition to the regular methods, we have a set of algorithms which works on the working of the graph based techniques. Say for example, the minimal spanning tree algorithm, so which works on the concept of the minimal spanning tree. So these are the different sets of the clustering algorithms, and under this partitioning algorithms you have again different techniques. So these are all the different techniques that comes under this partitioning: the k-means, k-medoids, k-modes, the fuzzy C-means, and then again the k-medoids you have the Palm, Clara, then Clarence. These are all the different types of clustering algorithms that comes under the category of partitioning methods, because they all work, all these set of algorithms, they work on the principle that, so you just divide the set of algorithms into k different groups, and whereas the k value is predefined and you cannot change that k value during your process. So once you choose your k value is 5, your algorithm, so whatever the type of algorithm you are using, your algorithm will produce k different clusters. There will not be any change at all. So that's the problem with the partitioning methods. Then there is another set of algorithms known as the hierarchical algorithms, and under that again we have the divisive or the agglomerative approaches, so which works on the top down or the bottom up approaches. And again in that we have the Diana, Agnes, Birch, Cure, Rock, and Chameleon. These are the various types of clustering algorithms that works based on the principle of hierarchical clustering principles. Then another class of methods are density based methods. So some examples are the dbScan, string click, DENCLU, and optics wave cluster. These are all the algorithms, examples for the density based methods, and we will be discussing the dbScan algorithm alone. And under the graph based methods we have MST, and then of course we have the opossum and the ascendant similarity clustering algorithm also, and as part of our syllabus we have the MST clustering algorithm. We will be discussing that in the future classes. And in addition to these types we have the model based clustering, as I already explained you. So we have the expectation maximization algorithm. So GMM actually works on the Gaussian mixture models, works actually based on the ZM algorithm, and you have even the auto class, then cobweb, and also ANN clustering also. So these are all the different clustering algorithms that works on the principle of the model based clustering. So these are all the different types of the big picture of varieties of the clustering algorithms. And as part of our syllabus, we'll be discussing these set of algorithms under clustering. Under the partitioning, we will be discussing the k-means and also the k-medoids algorithm. For the k-medoids, we have again different types, Clara, Clarence and all. So we'll be discussing few of them. Then hierarchical, under the hierarchical case category, we have Diana, which is under the divisive approaches, we'll be discussing Diana. Under the agglomerative, we'll be discussing Agnes approach. Then under density based, we have the DB-scan algorithm, and under the graph based algorithm, the minimal spanning tree based graph based technique we'll be discussing. So overall, we'll be discussing all these different types of. So to get to know, to make you understand how each of these partitioning, hierarchical, the density and the graph based algorithms works, we'll be discussing one or two of the sample algorithms. And now let's see the very popular and the very old approach. Simple approach is the k-means clustering algorithm. So k-means algorithm is actually proposed in the year 1979 itself. So it's actually introduced by K. Harrington and Wong. So these are the two persons who introduced this algorithm in the year 1979. And given the set of n distinct objects, that is n objects are given to you, and this k-means clustering algorithm works like, so your entire data, the n objects will be divided into k different number of clusters, and while dividing the data into different clusters, your objective, the objective you need to satisfy is the intra-cluster similarity is high, that is intra-cluster is within the class distance, the similarity must be high, whereas inter-class distance or the inter-cluster distance or the similarity must be low. So inter-cluster similarity means, between the clusters the similarity must be low, that is the distance must be high. Consider these two are the different clusters. So you consider some of the samples here in this cluster and some samples in this cluster. In this case, the similarity between any 2 points in this cluster must be very high. The similarity must be high, the distance must be low. And if you consider 1 point from this cluster and 1 point from this cluster, and that's called as the inter-cluster distance, and it should be high when compared to the intra-class distance. So that based on that objective or the principle, this k-means clustering works. And in this clustering algorithm, what happens is, so this k value is predefined. So how many number of clusters are defined or formed by your algorithm, that is predefined itself. So if you choose k value as 5, then your algorithm will produce k as 5. And what is the type of distance measure you can use, that is up to you. You can use any type of distance measure. And now let's see the algorithm, how the algorithm works. So for this algorithm, input is D or N, whatever you call. So I am assuming D is a data set that is given to me, with N is the number of objects and K is the number of clusters. Actually this information will not be given to you and you need to empirically decide that, and I assume that this can be, maybe it's not given to the model. So you are the programmer has to decide that k value. So the input is basically this, and the algorithm expects the k value also. Maybe for example k value 5 I am giving, or you can choose 10, or you can choose 2 also. So 2, 3 or whatever it is. And the output is, if k value is 2, then your algorithm will produce 2 different clusters. If k value is 5, then 5 different clusters will be produced by you. And the steps are, so what are the steps that are followed by this algorithm, by this k-means algorithm is, you need to choose randomly k different objects from the given set of objects. From the given data set, you need to choose k different objects, and that forms the centroids for your data. Say for example, my data is something like this. Assume this is all the data. In this case, I choose this example. Assume my k value is 2. In that case, I am randomly choosing two of the objects from the given data as the cluster centers. Maybe randomly I can choose this, and maybe I can choose this also. In that case, so this becomes one of the cluster center and this becomes one of the cluster center. Then in the next step, what do I need to do is, for every object in the data set, So for all the objects you need to do this. So you had to compute the distance between the current object and for all the other cluster centroids, and for every object, say for example this is the object I am considering. So for this object I consider and I find the distance from this object to this center. So this is one cluster centroid, right, and this is another cluster centroid. So I find the distance from this object to this cluster centroid and also from this object to this centroid. Now I got the distance, and again from this object also I need to find the distance between these two centroids. Similarly for every object, for this and for this cluster centroid, what is the distance? So that is how you need to find the distance measure for every object to the cluster centroids. So if your k value 2, so for both the cluster centroids you need to identify the distance measures. So once you have the distance measure, you can understand that to which cluster center the object is close. If you observe, this object is close to this centroid. So I assign this object to this cluster, and similarly this also it's close to this, this is close to this, this is close to this, this is close, this is close, this is close to this is close to this, right, and this is also close to this when compared to this is also close to this, and this is, if you observe, this is close to this than this, and here this is also close to this, then this is close to this, like that. The initial clusters will be, this is one cluster and this is another cluster, right? And now you identify, in the next step, you identify the mean value of this or the cluster center. So mostly the mean value of the entire samples of one cluster, that forms the cluster centroid. So hereafter, so maybe in this case this will be the cluster center hereafter, and after that this sample also can be in the over the iterations, this sample again you need to identify the distance from every object to the cluster centroid. So here earlier this was the centroid, right, and now this will be the centroid for this cluster. And now you find the distance between every point to the centroids of the clusters. Again you assign the objects to the clusters, and this process has to be repeated until some convergence criteria has to be satisfied. And to summarize, what are you doing here? So what you are doing here is you select k when your k value is 5 or 2 or 3, whatever it is, you just set that number and you randomly choose k of the objects from your data, and those objects become your centroid for the clusters. And always in your data, so your data is assigned to one of these clusters, k clusters, and every object is belonging to only one of the clusters. And now, so after choosing initial cluster centers, so from every object you just find the distance between that object and the cluster centers, and after that you assign every object to the closest center. After assignment is done, then you identify the cluster center again, and you repeat this process till the convergence criteria is satisfied, and shortly we will see what is the convergence criteria. And now let us see what are the points to be noted while applying the k-means algorithm. While applying the algorithm, assume that this is the data set n samples, where A is the data set, A1 to An are the set of samples, and each AI is a continuous data type. We are assuming that, and you need to compute the distance. So, and the distance measure could be, because it's a continuous data, then you can use either L1 distance or L2 distance or L3 distance, or even cosine similarity also if your data is sparse. And you are, once you identify the distance, then you need to have the minimum distance measure. So how do you define the closeness to your cluster center? So that you need to define. So once that is also done, you need to have the mean calculation. So mean calculation, why do we need that? So once the cluster, once assigning every object to a cluster, you need to identify the centroid. For that you need to compute the mean, and what is the convergence criteria that has to be satisfied. So I said in the previous case, the algorithm, while discussing the algorithm, you need to repeat the process for some number of iterations till the convergence criteria is satisfied. And what can be the convergence criteria? The convergence criteria is simply you repeat the process for k number of some p number of times, some number of iterations. That is one way to do it, deal with that. Or otherwise, so there, as long as there is some change in the cluster assignment, you can repeat the process. So once after iterating some number of iterations, your clusters will not change, they become stable. So even if you repeat the process also, there will not be use. So as long as that criteria is satisfied, you can apply that, or otherwise you can use that there is no change in your cluster assignment, and you can even choose it as the cluster quality reaches some acceptance level. So for the clustering task also, we have some performance measures, maybe Gini index and all. So you can use one of the measure to find the quality of the cluster, and if you are happy with the quality, you can stop it, otherwise you can proceed. And now let's see an example. Here I am going to discuss an example for the k-means clustering algorithm. Assume this is the object. So these are all the n objects that are given to me, and every object is having two different attributes. Say for example, marks of the grade in the first subject and grade in the second subject, and these are all the students. I am going to group the students depending on their grades in two different subjects. Assume that is the task, and I am given some 10 students or 15 students I am given, and these are all the grades in the first subject and the second subject. And for the ith student, so the first grade is 6 and the second grade is 19.9, something like that. So that is how I can represent each of the data object, and you can represent, because it's a 2D, I can represent that here. And here, what is the process when you apply the k-means clustering? Initially you need to choose k different objects from the given data. I am given that my k value is 3. I am assuming that my k value is 3. There is a possibility that there are 3 different clusters. On seeing the data, I understand that, and I assign k value as 3. In that case, the first step in the algorithm is you need to choose 3 random samples from the data, and I am choosing this sample and this sample as random samples. Then what happens, this becomes the centroid for the first cluster, centroid for the second cluster, centroid for the third cluster. So now the initialization is over. Now you need to compute the distance measures for every data object to every other centroid. For this object, you find the distance to this, to this, to this, and also to this. And for this sample also, this sample, for every sample you need to identify the distance between that object and the rest of to all the centroids. Now for with every object you have, assume this is, I am calling this as cluster 1, cluster 2 and cluster 3, and for every object you have the distance with cluster 1, the distance with cluster 2, distance with cluster 3, either similarity or the distance measure you can use. Assuming I am using the distance measure, say for example it is something like 4.5 is the distance, here it is 5.2, and I am using the distance measure, not the similarity measure, and 6.3 is the distance. In that case, this example is belonging to which cluster I can assign, because the distance to the cluster 1 is low and distance to the second cluster is 5.2, distance to the third cluster is 6.3, the centroid I mean. In that case, because it's a distance, so I better assign this object to the cluster 1, right? So maybe it's 3.3, then I assign this object to the cluster 3. So now this example will be assigned to, more meaningful, right, 3.3 to cluster 3 distance. Yeah, that is how I can repeat the process. Now let's consider one simple example with k equal to 3, and so now I am assuming k value as 3 and my cluster centers are, so these 3 are the cluster centers, the initial cluster centers, and I am going to use the L2 norm for identifying the distance measure, okay, and the distance from one object to distance to the first centroid is d1, second centroid is d2, third centroid is d3. So with that notation I am proceeding, and now let's see, now let's continue with that. So for first object, to the first cluster the distance is 4, second cluster it is 1.1, third cluster is 5.9. So to which cluster I need to assign this, the first object? So because it's a distance measure, to whichever cluster the object is close, that is the distance is small, to that cluster you need to assign. So according to that I assign this object, the first object, to the second cluster. It belongs to the second group. And now similarly, these are the distances for the third cluster to different centroids. And now whichever is small, to that cluster I need to assign. So that way I assign the third object to the first cluster. And similarly, if you observe this object to the first cluster and this object to the first cluster, and then this object to the first cluster again, and if you observe, this object is also to the first cluster, this object to the third cluster, this is to the third cluster, then this is to the third cluster, right, because it's minimum, and this is to the second cluster, first cluster, then the first cluster, then this is to the second cluster, then the first cluster, then this is to the second cluster. So now I have assigned every object to one of the cluster depending on the distance measures. Now that is available with me. So if you observe now, if you assign each of the object to one of the clusters, then these are the initial clusters that are formed now. So this is the cluster 1, cluster 2 and cluster 3. So these are the clusters. Now once that is done, again I need to understand, I need to measure. So you need to iterate the process, right? So the whole centroid is represented with this, and this is the new center. So the whole centroid is this, but after computing the mean of all these values, this is my new cluster, and this is my new cluster for this. This is my new cluster for this. So now it's clear that why we are computing the cluster center. Now the cluster center changes, so the object assignment, there is a possibility of changing the object assignment also. Again, you have to identify the cluster distances from every object. Now let's compute that. Identify the cluster distance from every object, and you can see here, observe, this is the previous and the next iteration. Your cluster assignment is changing actually. Here there are three, and here it is, so these are all the samples that are belonging to the other cluster. Now that is how you need to repeat the process for certain number of times or till some convergence criteria is met. And what is the advantage of using k-means clustering is, if you observe so that is how you can repeat the process for certain number of times or till some convergence criteria is met, and you can stop whenever your convergence criteria is met. So you will get k number of clusters as output. So if you observe, do you see any disadvantage of doing this? So you need to do huge computations, right? Say for example, if you are given some million number of examples, from those million number of examples to all the cluster centers, you need to find the distance for every iteration, which is computationally too much incentive. So that is the problem with the k-means clustering. And also if there is any noise that is present in your data, so that affects your final result too much. So it's not, so it cannot have any resistance to the noise. That is another problem with the k-means clustering algorithm. And let's see what are some of the advantages of the k-means clustering algorithm. So the advantages of k-means clustering is, it's very simple. First of all, it's very widely accepted for different types of data. So that is one advantage, and it requires very efficient, because once you have the distance measures, you can throw them out. So you need not to store the entire data while testing. So while prediction, if you have the cluster centers, that is enough. You need not to have all the samples in your storage. That's another advantage of using the k-means algorithm. And by saving the distance information from one iteration to the another iteration, the actual number of distance calculations, as you move towards the termination or towards the convergence, then you need not to identify the distance measures from every data point. So once you measure the distance and you can keep that with you, that will be helpful. That is another advantage you have with the k-means clustering algorithm. And what is the disadvantage of this limitations of the k-means? It's computationally intensive. That is one we discussed earlier, and there is another problem also. The problem is, if your k value is unknown, but you are fixing that. Say for example, if you choose k value as 5, so you will end up with 5 different clusters, and you really don't know how many clusters are there, and that cannot be changed during the process. So the k value is predefined before you starting your algorithm itself. So that is the problem, and this k-means algorithm doesn't work well with your categorical data. So it works well with the numerical data. So that's another another limitation of the k-means clustering, so it's not suitable for all the data types. And there is a possibility of going to the local optima instead of choosing the global optima, because the criteria function in the k-means clustering is designed such that, so it may end up in the local optima. So these are all the limitations of the k-means clustering algorithm. Yeah, in this lecture we have discussed what k-means algorithm is and what are the different types of. So in this lecture we have discussed what are various types of clustering algorithms that are widely used, like partitioning algorithms, hierarchical algorithms, density based, model based, graph based. So these are all the different types of algorithms, and what are the different techniques that comes under each of these set of clustering algorithms. And then we have seen the working of the k-means clustering algorithm along with the advantages and the limitations of that algorithm. So in the next class we will discuss the other types of algorithms like hierarchical and the density based algorithms. Thank you for watching the video.